Folks, welcome into sportsbookreview.com. This is your Major League Baseball show for Friday, the 25th of September, 2020. This is our last show. Our last regular season show with the playoffs beginning next week. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Jason Radowitz. One last weekend to try to, differentiate, as I like to say, where those playoff positions are going. Will my Philadelphia Phillies make the playoffs? I don't actually think so. The New York Mets, Jason, you're still hanging in it, so you get a nice little weekend or maybe a few hours tonight to relive those memories of 1986 and maybe the year 2000 to try to get to the World Series, see what takes place here. But we're going to have a really good show here on a Friday. You have, obviously, a lot of double headers here, but a full card, some interesting tidbits to go over. I'm looking forward to this. It's a football Friday at the channels, but as I always say, Jason, it's time to make some money here in Major League Baseball. Let's have some fun today. Jason, weekend is set up. Do your Mets get in the playoffs? This should be a very quick answer.
Probably not, but there's still hope. There's still hope with a couple of games left. So I'm not, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, a lot to decipher for this weekend, too. Some interesting stuff. The Phillies go on the road and play the Tampa Bay Rays. Also, you want to see about these, the Miami Marlins going to play in New York City to take on the Yankees. There's a lot of things figuring down. So obviously you have Saturday college football, Sunday NFL action, but the diamond is heating up, and that's a product of what? 8 teams in each league getting into the playoffs. You thought it would come right down to the end, and just about, I don't want to say every team, but a handful of teams jockeying for position and another handful of teams just trying to actually get into the playoffs. We'll see where that winds up. Welcome into the chat box. How about this? 72 people watching 1 minute into the show, but more importantly, 68,900 people have now subscribed to the network here at sportsbookreview.com right here on our YouTube channel. We do thank you for that. We are close to 69,000, on our way to 70,000. A lot of good things happening here on the networks, and it all starts with you guys in the chat box. Randy, J Jerk, Alex, Edwin, Jose, Lamont, Pandemonium, Randy, welcome in. Let's have some fun. Let's get after it today. And you guys know the drill. We're just about going to hit every single game today. We'll brush up on some of these doubleheaders because I believe there are 3 separate doubleheaders with teams today. So we'll catch up on those in just a little bit. But let's start with the Philadelphia Phillies. Jason, 9:05, 9:06. Vince Velasquez is going to go on the mound down in the Dome in Tampa versus Charlie Morton. Opens up at 169, and it's moving down 146s, 145s, as high as 150 at some of the New Jersey outlets. And I actually agree with that. Over-under opens up at 8.5, now 8.5 across the board. I think this number is a little bit too low. Not talking about the side, Jason, 146, 147, because overall, if we looked at the pitching matchup, you probably would say Morton is a better pitcher, but the lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies anticipated today, getting JT Realmuto back, maybe Bryce Harper stays hot after going through that funk. That's a cheap team total. And I got to say, as much as I've been banging on my Phillies for the past couple of days, they're dead in the water. I see a 3.5 as a team total for the Phillies in this game. Now, look, Morton isn't a true shutdown pitcher, but he also doesn't explode and blow up. But if you can get, 5 innings, Jason, 2 earned runs off Morton, you only got to scratch out another, 2 runs over the final 4 innings of the game. I think the Phillies can get that. One team fighting for a spot. One team already has the division clinched. I think the Phillies can get the 4 runs today. That's the way I'm going to lean on this one.
The over seems like a great play in this game. Yeah. Of course, I'm going to be rooting for the Rays. But if you look at this game, like Velasquez has a low ground ball rate, high hard contact rate, not the greatest pitcher, on the Phillies. He allowed just 1 earned run in his last start versus the Blue Jays in 6 innings pitched. But on the road, he has struggled. Does have a 8.31 ERA and a 3.16 opponent batting average on the road this season. But then you go to Morton, and you're like, all right, well, Morton's a pretty good pitcher, not at home this year. A 6.19 ERA at home, 3.13 batting average with 21 hits in 16 innings pitched, 11 earned runs at home this season. On the season, the righties are hitting now 304 versus Morton on the season. So Morton hasn't been great either, allowed 7 earned runs in his last 14.1 innings pitched. So I do think the Phillies definitely score runs in this game against Morton early. But I do think the Rays score some runs versus Velasquez. Now here, Velasquez, he's a high strikeout pitcher, 12.13 per 9 innings. And Donnie, you like to talk about this Rays lineup and how they strike out a ton. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at this game, and that's the one reason why I don't want to take the over, and why I kind of agree with Donnie a little bit more on going at the Phillies instead of the Rays. Even though Velasquez has not been great, a 5.46 ERA, a 4.39 FIP, Velasquez can get strikeouts. And Charlie Morton struggled in his last couple of outings. Hasn't looked the best. Hasn't looked like the eighth pitcher that we known with Morton. So for me, I think over 8.5 is a great play. I do think the Rays scratch out a couple runs, but I like your Phillies play. I think it's a good one. And when you have a chance to just get over 9 in this game, that Phillies lineup is going to be hungry tonight. They should perform. And I think the Rays obviously will get some runs versus Velasquez as well.
Yeah, and if we take a look at some of Morton's numbers there, I mean, he's a good pitcher in Major League Baseball, but it could do a little bit of damage from the left-hand side. On the season, his ISO versus left-handed batters is a 204, so that's a little bit elevated. Philly's scheduled to have 5 left-handers in the lineup tonight, 4 right-handed batters. And it's just a product of what we're saying, because sometimes you look at that 3.5, Jason, and you say, well, it's usually like the Pittsburgh Pirates going against a good pitcher. One swing of the bat is always my moniker of what I like to say. You get Bryce Harper with a 2-run shot, and all of a sudden you say, hey, man, I only need 2 more runs in this game, and it's the 3rd inning. I think they can scratch out some runs in this one. And also keep in mind, you're talking about 2 teams. If it is a lower scoring game, Jason and I always bring up this point. 3-3 at the end of 9 does not seem like a huge number to get to, and that's probably going to get your number for a team total of 4 for the Phillies. I just saw that 3.5 there on the bottom line, Jason. I said, you know what? I'm going to lean on going in that direction. I think they can scratch out some runs. We're not asking for 5.5. We're not asking for 6 runs. We're just asking for 4. I think they can get there in this one. And again, keep the Phillies back in the playoff race. Somebody in the chat box says, Jason, they thought you were shirtless coming on to the show here today. And I got to tell you, we might be able to make this promise. If the Mets somehow get into the playoffs, Jason will do the show shirtless on Monday in celebration. 9-11, 9-12, Boston and Atlanta. Matza on the mound versus Wright. Opens up how about this? Kyle Wright opens up as a 156 favorite and jumps to a 165. That tells you how much people are trusting in Matza as the starter and also the bullpen of the Boston Red Sox. The line opened up at 10 and it's gone to 10.5. I agree with that. I like to call these type of games a low pressure situation, but I also want to double check to see what lineups I'm going to get, because if the Atlanta Braves are under the impression like, hey, you know what? It's the weekend. Let's not get injured. Let's get the bench some at bats. That might change my tone a little bit. But if we're going with an A lineup for Atlanta, there's no reason that they won't put up runs. But also, Jason, I know you've been on Boston's side quite a bit. It's a sneaky lineup, and we're talking about Wright as a pitcher. If he goes 5 innings, 3 earned runs, that's a very good start for him. So I'm going to lean and agree with that over. It would be nice if you had 10, but I still think the game gets over 10.5, predicated on a really good starting lineup out of both of these teams here, Jason. What are you thinking?
So last night, like you said, it was at 10. I actually bought it down to 9.5.
Very nice.
And I got it at around -135, -137 range, from what I remember. But yeah, I mean, I think this game goes double digits for sure. Would I rather the viewers buy it down to 9.5? Of course, that might be around -150 now. That might be a little bit too high. So just buying it down to 10. If we get 10, you at least get a push.
Yep.
So yeah, I like the over in this game. It's an official play for me, of course. I think the Red Sox can actually win this game too as underdog at +150 against Kyle Wright. It's funny though, because Kyle Wright, he's looked really good versus the Mets, and he's just been destroyed by every other team. So it's not the Mets, it's the Red Sox, and that's the good news here. But Wright does have a 6.14 ERA at home, a batting average of 375 for opponents at home. Lefties are hitting 317, so you have guys like Verdugo, Devers, guys that can really do damage. And we know that Wright has a high walk rate, so he's walking 6.03 batters per 9 innings. So we talked about how he kind of struggles in the second time around the order. Well, if the bottom half of the lineup can get on base through walks, you have Verdugo and Devers back-to-back in the top of the order that can do damage and score some runs easily, with a couple of the guys at the bottom of the lineup getting on base, via a walk or maybe a single. And therefore, I love those 2 lefties. I think they can do damage against Wright with some guys on base. But on the other hand, Chris Meza, he was a Met, a couple of years ago, might have been even last year. He's not on the team anymore for a reason. And that bullpen was atrocious last year. Like, Edwin Diaz was terrible, looked a lot better this year. Seth Lugo was the only guy that was performing in the bullpen. Familia was awful, and even Meza couldn't get the job done, and that's why he's not on the team anymore. Now he's with the Red Sox. Has a 5.4 ERA, a batting average of balls in play at 373, and a left on base percentage at 65.5, a ground ball rate of 36.4. Nothing going right for Meza. Also 4.68 walks per 9 innings. So both these pitchers just don't have it going for them. You can't really expect either of these guys to go 5 innings either. So you're getting the bullpen of the Red Sox. The Braves bullpen hasn't been perfect either. So for that reason, over 9.5 at around minus 135. It's an official play for me. I would play it at 10. I'd be a little cautious at 10.5, but I'd play it at 10.
Yeah, no, and I can agree with you. I like the sentiment on each and everything because you're going up against two pitchers that aren't expected to go long in the game, and you do have some pedigree bats. If I can get a decent lineup, as I said, with Atlanta, that'll make me feel a lot better because I think both of these teams, it wouldn't stretch the imagination if both of these teams at least reach 4 apiece, and that should be in play for taking that total down, regardless if you got the 9.5, 10, or 10.5. I think we get some runs tonight in this. How about this? 9-15, 9-16, 15 total runs last night. Miguel Cabrera looking like Miguel Cabrera of 10 years ago, dropping 450-foot bombs, but I did have a play myself on the Kansas City Royals, which a lot of people on Twitter had as well, or excuse me, in the chat box for us had as well. So you could sort of see it coming last night as an over in that game. I was actually surprised Detroit got to, their 7 runs, but then again, they do hit left-handed pitching pretty well, so it all matched up well. You got that 3-run. It's always nice, too, when you get the over, you feel like even though we've been there, done that, where you score early and you don't score again, the 3-run home run in the first inning by Salvador Perez, I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be such a good night. And then I should have been closed out in like the second or third inning, and I'm still sitting around the 6th inning before it cashes. I'm like, don't do this to me. I don't need to sweat any much longer. I'm trying to enjoy this NFL game. But back to today's game, Detroit and Kansas City, Turnbull versus Keller. 7 out of every 10 tickets here at SBRodds.com coming in on the Kansas City Royals in this game. Opened up at 157 offshore, but we actually see some backtracking here. 151, 155s, 150s across the board with a total of 8.5. I'm going to look the same way I did yesterday. Jorge Soler sat out of the lineup last night, but did come in as a pinch hitter, drove in a run. So him coming back to that lineup is definitely a boon. Maikel Franco, who I ripped for costing me money a week and a half ago, has been very nice to me recently. So hopefully he continues to stay in the lineup. I'm going to lean towards Kansas City's team total over 4.5 in this game. Now, Turnbull does have some decent numbers ERA-wise, but still his advanced analytics of what he's supposedly giving up, a little bit elevated for me. And also keep in mind, we are in September and late September. You're going to get a nice mid-70s night with the wind blowing out in Kansas City, and that ball travels there. I'll go the home team here, team total over 4.5. What are we looking at here, Jason, between the Tigers and the Royals?
Yeah, I like the Royals in this game as well. I'm going with minus 0.5 in the first 5 innings at minus 106. Brad Keller, I think he's this is a guy that doesn't get as much love as maybe he should. His ground ball rate is really high, and it's been high throughout his entire career. His ERA at home, you guys won't even believe this, it's 0.33. 0.33 ERA at home this season in 4 games, 18 strikeouts, 7 walks. And, we know the Tigers strike out a ton. And he'll probably get some strikeouts in this game as well. Two games ago, Keller went complete game versus the Pirates earlier in the season. He did allow 5 earned runs in 5 innings pitched to the Brewers in his last start, but now coming back home, going up against this Tigers offense, especially the Tigers seem to be that scrappy team that kind of comes back in games, but they're always kind of down early. So that's why I like the Royals minus 0.5 in the first 5. Like you said, the Royals offense is really kind of figuring it out offensively as of late. Turnbull, a 5.79 road ERA in 5 starts, 15 runs in 21 hits in 23.1 innings pitched, 22 strikeouts, but 16 walks on the road. He's also allowed 7 earned runs in his last 11 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts, and 1 walk. So he's looked good in his last 2, but in those 2 games, he actually still allowed 13 hits in those starts. So it's just a matter of getting those runners to score. And that's what the Royals have done in their last 2 games, and I expect them to do that again in this one. So Brad Keller, a guy, doesn't allow too many home runs. I mean, both these pitchers really don't allow too many home runs, but he's a guy that, Keller, he throws strikes, gets the ground balls. He won't aggravate you with walks like Turnbull will. And for that reason, Royals minus 0.5 in the first 5 just seems like the better play on the slate today.
Taking a look at this next game, which is interesting, 2 teams hard charging towards the playoffs, 9-19, 9-20, Cincinnati and Minnesota. Tyler Mahle versus Jose Barrios. We open up at 8.5 as a total. Still sits 8.5s across the board, but Barrios opened up a 146 favorite. That's dropped back down to 134, 136. We do know Minnesota is in the playoffs, still fighting for the division with a pretty good shot to win the division, but we know Cincinnati needs to keep on stacking wins. The interesting part about this game, if you're just taking a look at this year, the pedigree of the pitcher obviously is better with with Barrios. But when you take a look at some of his advanced numbers here, a 430 xFIP and a 443 Sierra, you take a look and you see Tyler Mahle, that 453 Sierra, 453 xFIP, but a 4.02 Sierra number. He's every bit as good this year as Jose Barrios has been. And also, you're taking a look at some things that I looked at with the Philadelphia Phillies game. Some low numbers, Jason. We have good weather in Minnesota. Yes, we have two decent pitchers on the mound, but anytime you see like Cincinnati, who's red hot at the plate, their team total in this game, getting a full 9 at-bats being on the road, is only 3.5, just like the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Minnesota Twins team total here is 4, -125 to -130. I actually like both of those. It's kind of interesting who you trust more, because the Reds lineup is really good, but you're still going against Barrios. He's at home. They're still in the fight, as I said, to win the division. I feel a little bit more comfortable with those Minnesota bats if I get a full go lineup, and Nelson Cruz might be back in the lineup tonight. I think I can get 4 runs. I mean, look, I do still think the Reds can get the 4 runs and win that, but I sort of feel more comfortable taking that Twins team at home if I can get Nelson Cruz in that lineup. So we'll see when they come out, but I like it both ways. Just I lean a little bit more on that Minnesota team total at 4 here, Jason. What are you looking at?
Yeah, Twins over team total would probably be the play for me as well. Like you said, I think this game could easily go over as well as a full game, play. But Barrios, he has looked okay in September. 5 earned runs in 22 innings pitched. 2.67 ERA at home this season with just a 168 opponent batting average. But righties are still hitting the 298 on the year against Barrios, which is pretty concerning for quote unquote eighth pitcher that Barrios was supposed to be this year. But, Tyler Mahle, on the other hand, he's allowed 10 runs in his last 22.1 innings pitched, has a high K rate, and walks are a bit high. But, Barrios does have high walks as well. He also, Mahle also has a 4.97 road ERA, and a OBA is much higher on the road this season at 0.245. So, I think the Twins have a little bit of an edge here. This game would definitely go over the total. I think the Twins have a little bit of a better lineup, obviously. But like you said, the Reds have been hot. So I think either way you look at it, taking the over on either team total or the over in the game, I think it's the better play. Obviously, with the Twins, seeing their money line movement all the way down to like the 130s, it excites me a little bit to say, all right, the Twins at -130 with Barrios on the mound. I don't see how you can't take that. Of course, I have other plays I'd rather. But if you're looking at a money line play, I think the Twins, if you're getting them around -135, I mean, you'd be crazy not to take it if you're looking at this game.
Yeah, two good baseball teams, and that's what you get tonight. So you get a nice number, that 130, 135. Maybe they have a shot at that total. We'll see how those pitchers come out in the game. But also keep in mind, you're talking about Minnesota in late September. First pitch, 77 degrees with a double-digit wind blowing out. You'll take that in the middle of the summer for the Minnesota Twins. So some really good hitting conditions there. I do want to see if Nelson Cruz gets back in that lineup. You can usually count on him for a big home run. And again, you're getting cheap numbers here. Sometimes you got to bet into the 5s and the 5.5s. 3.5 for the Reds, 4 for the Minnesota Twins. We'll keep pushing along here. 923, 924 Seattle and Oakland. Kikuchi is on the mound, the lefty versus Bassett. Opens up at 8.5. How about this? The line drops to 8 because most people, look, Bassett, not a great pitcher. Kikuchi, not a great pitcher, but their numbers are holding up. You actually see Kikuchi's numbers holding up a little bit better than Bassett's overall. When I take a look at this game and I just want to get some isolation, I know the Oakland, back end of the bullpen is better than Seattle's bullpen. So if I'm looking to take maybe, and again, I mean terrible at taking underdogs, but if I were good at taking underdogs, I would look at this game first 5 innings and say I can get a +150 on Seattle with Kikuchi straight up versus Bassett and don't have to worry about the bullpens. Sure to be down 5-0 by the 3rd inning, but hey, my eye doesn't really fit underdogs, specifically of 150 or higher in baseball. I'll lean on Seattle first 5 innings, see if I can take down a big dog at that +150. Which way are you looking in this game here between the Oakland Athletics and the Seattle Mariners?
I hope that you're wrong on the underdog again. I really do. I have an official play on the Athletics, -0.5 in the first 5 innings.
We're opposite.
-125.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
We're out there. This doesn't happen too often, though. But, Kikuchi has a high Sierra. He's now allowed 9 earned runs in his last 10 innings pitched against the Padres and Diamondbacks. His road ERA is 7.36 and has a opponent batting average of 316 on the road this season. He's also just 2-4 in 8 games, so we only have 2 wins in 8 games. Does have a high walk rate at 3.73 per 9 innings. His batting average of balls in play 312. he's really struggling with leaving guys on base. It's just 54.2%. Does get a solid ground ball rate, but Bassett, this is a guy who limited the Giants to no runs in 6.2 innings pitched in his last start. Allowed 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. He now has 15 strikeouts in his last 2 starts and has gone 6 innings or more in his last 3 starts. His home ERA is .89 on the season and has a 2.57 ERA, a 3.84 FIP, which is pretty respectable. Doesn't walk too many batters. Allows a home run less than 1 per 9 innings. BABIP is a lot lower than Kikuchi. He leads 84.4% of batters on base. Ground ball rate is a little bit below average, but he's done well with guys on base, pitching around it. 5-2 on the year in 10 games. Has the better offense, has the better bullpen, but doesn't really matter because I'm taking the first 5. But I like the Athletics all the way around in this one. Athletics minus 0.5 in the first 5 at minus 125. Official play for me.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit my eye in this one, so I would have no surprise that when I just throw flyers out here on dogs of like 150 or higher and just get smoked. I expect to probably get that done again today, but we'll see what happens between Seattle and Oakland. Let's swing back here before we brush up on some of these doubleheaders because Jason's boys are in a tussle down in Washington, and yes, if you just look at the standings, all you ask for is a chance to make the playoffs, and the Mets still have a chance to make the playoffs. Going to get a little bit harder today. 901, 902 on the rotation. Porcello is going to go up against Scherzer. The total opens up at 8.5, stays at 8.5 across the board. But how about this? A fighting chance for your Mets offshore at SBRodds.com. We open around that 150 range. Now I'm seeing 137s, 140s as some of the sharper books out here. So it should be a shot. And I guess it just goes to if Max Scherzer pitches really well, 7 innings, 2 earned runs. The factor they have to put in here is Rick Porcello stepping up to the plate and going against that weak Washington lineup, which was really weak yesterday. After I got off the show looking at the lineup, no Asdrubal Cabrera, which would have been nice right in the middle of that lineup. There's a lot to be desired overall. So if you're looking at Porcello, he doesn't have to have a great outing. He's not going up against the Minnesota Twins or the Atlanta Braves lineup or the Philadelphia Phillies lineup today. He's going up against a team that might be looking and say, hey, Juan Soto, it's the end of the year. Why don't you take a day off today? We'll finish out on Saturday, Sunday. If Trey Turner sits, if one of those 2 key cogs goes down, you're looking at a really good shot for an underdog with the New York Mets. Michael Conforto goes on IR, but still, that's a decent lineup overall. I don't know if I want to go against Max Scherzer and just take Porcello, but again, a lot has to do with the lineups here. If I get one of those 2 guys up at the top of the lineup for the Washington Nationals missing this game, the Mets should be a live dog in this one to me, Jason.
There's potential there, and obviously, my biased opinion, the Mets are a live dog for sure. Porcello, he has the high Sierra, low swing strike rate, but in his last start versus the Braves, he kind of pitched like Scherzer. He went 7 innings pitched, allowed just 1 run on 3 hits, had 10 strikeouts in that game. And also, he looked solid versus the Nationals earlier in the season, allowing just 3 earned runs in 13 innings pitched this season versus the Nationals. So Porcello just has to, just allow 1 to 2 runs in this game at most and give the Mets just a chance to win this game late. Scherzer, he's allowed 8 earned runs in his last 2 starts, hasn't even pitched through the 6th inning. He hasn't looked great. He allowed 2 earned runs versus the Mets in 7 innings pitched this season. 1 start was, of course, due to an injury. 2nd start was, fine. 6 innings pitched, he looked fine in that game. But Scherzer hasn't been, Max Scherzer of old this season, and that's a reflection on why the Nationals are not making the playoffs this season. But, the reality is, this game's going to go under. It's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot to be desired in the first couple of innings. Probably nothing going on, and late in the game we might see some runs. But I would assume under 8.5 is the play. I think both pitchers get the job done, and I hope the Mets come out on top towards the end as a live underdog. But the reality is that there's other games to bet on that you have much better angles with than this one.
We got next in the chat box says, why not just take the Phillies money line if you like the solo over? My only answer to that is, have you seen their bullpen? I'm not worried about their offense. Velasquez. I think their offense can get the 4, and you got Velasquez starting, who can really struggle on the road, and then you couple it with a really bad bullpen. So if the game ends up Tampa Bay 7-4, I cheer very loudly and say, hey, my Phillies stink, but you know what? I'm going to be able to take the wife out to eat tonight. That's my reasoning behind not just taking the Phillies on the money line in this one. Tech Money Options here, good friend of SBR. He's is in here with his 5-year-old and hopped on to say hello, and let's get some welcome into the show. Thank you guys for being in the chat box today. 240 people watching live right now, and we are close. Next time I come on the air by Sunday, Jason, I'm going to say we're going to have at least 69,000 subscribers right here on the network and pushing towards 70,000 because we got a monster Monday Night Football show this weekend between Kansas City and also the Baltimore Ravens. So keep that in mind. Let's keep moving down the list here as we go. Let's take another game. We'll skip out that Baltimore-Toronto doubleheader, and let's get to Miami and the New York Yankees because, again, we are NL East fans, me being the Phillies, him being the Mets. It would be nice to see those Marlins, who put out a nice victory against the Atlanta Braves last night, take a loss today. J. Happ rounding a little bit into form. And how about this? Yankees open up at minus 181, now sitting at 183. Some of the outlets in New Jersey are FanDuel 205, DraftKings 200, Bet Rivers minus 200. So a heavy favorite for the Yankees, which I do like, going against Sandy Alcantara. Opens up at 9.5. That downshifted to 9 at some outlets, but primarily 9.5 across the board. I don't really know how engaged I would be since the Yankees can't win the division, and now I'm going to take them minus 200 in this game. But again, I always get back to the preference. It doesn't really matter who's in that Yankees lineup. There's no really weak hitting components. Maybe Higashioka, you can say, but then again, he can hit 3 home runs in a game, apparently, a couple weeks ago, and like double his career home runs in one outing. I lean towards the over in this game, but I'm not in love with this. I'm just in a rooting interest here against the Miami Marlins. Any looks between the Yankees and the Marlins for you today, Jason?
I don't know. Both these pitchers have looked pretty good recently. Alcantara, he's allowed just 6 earned runs in his last 24 innings pitched. And the guy goes 6 innings, consistently. Will always be out there for 6 innings, won't get tagged for too much. But now he goes up against the Yankees. Which is, obviously scary because that offense, we talk about how that offense can do damage no matter who's on the mound. But Happ also, he's just allowed 3 runs in his last 19.1 innings pitched in 3 starts. His road ERA is 3.86, has limited walks on the road as well. That's why, I you're right. This game should go over because of the 2 offenses. But then again, these 2 pitchers have looked pretty good recently. And looking at 9.5, saying, all right, well, these 2 pitchers might not allow it to get, out of hand. Maybe looking at the under in the first 5, maybe looking at under 9.5 is the play in this one. I wouldn't agree with taking any team here. I don't like the Marlins as an underdog, but the Yankees at minus 200 or even minus 1.5 seems pretty, pretty lame. But the Yankees being at home and playing against Alcantara was allowed just 6 earned runs in his last 24 innings pitched. So therefore, I guess under in this game if I had to choose.
It's funny, because the name pronunciation changes wildly. And if you guys have MLB.TV, or if you even have the MLB package and you watch between the visitors and the home teams, it's wild how you see this guy. It's Alcantara. I mean, there's so many different pronunciations. I always laugh. Same thing with Tyler Mahle, you see, but it's really Maley, and some people say in Cincinnati, Molly. So a lot of these pitchers, you have some wild stuff. I always get a good laugh out of because I say just about differently every time just to cover every one of my bases on that. But how about this game? Pittsburgh is now the Cy Young capital of the world, specifically when they play the Chicago Cubs. Keller is going to be on the mound today. I tell you, they're all the same. Every one of these pitchers is an identical robot coming out for the Pittsburgh Pirates today. They take on maybe a more formidable foe in Cleveland, trying to track down and win the division. Look at this total. Opens up at 7.5, still 7.5 across the board. You would think Carrasco will be able to dominate against Mitch Keller, and you would think those Cleveland at-bats coming to life, Jose Ramirez and the boys. It's always hard for me to trust, but it's a minus 240. So obviously you have one team playing for something, one team playing for nothing, now heading on the road. Is this one of those games, Jason, where we scratch our head by the 6th inning and be like, I cannot believe this is a 1-2-1 game and they can't hit Mitch Keller here on the road? I don't think that's going to be the case. It's still a little bit too rich for me to go run line first 5 innings or even run line for the game since it's a minus 240. I think the under has a legitimate chance to stay under because Carrasco, to me, should be able to dominate that Pittsburgh lineup. But 7.5 is just a little bit too low for me. Any plays or any thoughts on this game here, Jason?
The Pirates, they're looking like a good team right now. They stopped the Cubs, right? And Cubs couldn't do anything offensively. And we've talked about the Indians and how their offense has been miserable all season long. And even though they're a playoff team, it's really due to their pitching, right? And so seeing the Pirates at plus 230 after winning 3 straight games with great pitching and some timely hitting, why not take the Pirates as a value play at plus 230, right? I mean, we're dropping the ball here or not. I mean, Pirates plus 230 against the Indians and Carlos Carrasco. Carrasco, he allowed 3 runs and 5 hits to the Pirates earlier this season. The Pirates offense is better than they were in that game.
Yeah.
There's no chance I put money on this, okay? I'm not. There's no chance I put money on this. But I'm just saying, for the guys that have those guts out there, the Pirates at plus 230, thank me later. Thank me later.
No, I can't fault you. I watch good lineup after good lineups come after Cubs, and they can't even touch. What does it have? 3 games? I think they had like 3 runs over 3 games total, or something, or 4 games total. It was unbelievable to watch that series. And now, we're going to talk about them in just a few moments. But before we get there, we like to go to my trash can game of the day. Houston and Texas. Urquidy is on the mound versus Cody, the trash can bangers, which looks like they are going to be in the playoffs. Open up at 155, now sit at 180. But when you take a look at some of these numbers, like for Urquidy, 2.78 ERA, that's great, but a 5.73 xFIP and a 5.88 SIERA, you would say something has to give. And then we look at Texas's lineup and say, it doesn't matter who's pitching against them. You can pretty much dominate that lineup. So it's really hard to take a pitcher of that level, or at least with advanced analytics as Urquidy, at minus 180, because he should get torched. But then again, as I said, the Texas lineup leaves a lot to be desired. Opened up at 8.5. 8.5s are showing across the board. 9s. I have a lean towards the over just because this pitching matchup should lead me towards that. But I'm tired of getting caught in that trap of Houston wins 3-1 or 2-1. So I'm off this game completely. But it's a shame Texas's bats are so weak. They should be able to do damage against this pitcher for the Astros. What are you thinking?
So last night we had Lance Lynn on the mound for the Rangers, and both teams had great pitchers, and somehow the game went over to 16. I had under 4.5, and there were 16 runs scored in that game. Of course, in a Rangers game where I take the overs, blah, blah, nothing. They don't score anything. And then when you take the unders, of course, both teams come out and they score a solid, share of runs. But I agree. Over 8.5 definitely has to be the play in this one if I were to lean. Cody, 5.09 walks per 9 innings. Your Kitty, 3.18 walks per 9 innings, but he's not getting many strikeouts either. Like, his strikeout numbers are really low. His ground ball rate is very low too, though. So you look at the metrics, and I agree. This game should easily go over. The Astros should get the win. They had 12 runs last night. Their offense might be coming around. Who knows at this point? They hit Lance Lynn. They hit him well, hard. So Astros win this game, but I wouldn't take that money line kind of high. But over 8.5 seems like the play if I had to lean on this game.
Here's my dilemma game of the day, 9-17, 9-18. The Chicago Cubs, Yu Darvish is going to be on the mound. They're struggling. They still need to win. I don't think they've clinched just quite yet getting into the playoffs for the Cubs. But now looking at Dylan Cease on the mound, which I faded last time out, and it worked to my advantage. I look at this game. I see, the good hitting conditions on the south side of Chicago today. I see that Cubs lineup, which should be able to put what on paper is a good lineup, but sometimes that just doesn't work out because they were baffled by below average pitchers all week long in Pittsburgh. And now you get Dylan Cease, who gives up a lot of fly balls. It's just a matter of, can they score runs? Opens up at 133. So the public would be agreeing with a victory here, because now we're seeing 165s to 170s across the board, but the total dipping to 8 at some outlets here. It seems cheap to me, not because I don't think Darvish can pitch a pretty good game against the Chicago White Sox, but I just wake up and say, sooner or later, the Cubs lineup has to get back to doing what they do and trusting the numbers. Is this the game tonight, or are we going to be like, God damn, 3-1 again? What's wrong with the Cubs offense?
Yeah, that's how Cease has been all season, right? He's really destroyed us, and every time we try to bet against him, and like seeing the Cubs here as like slight favorites, it excites you. It's like, all right, well, Darvish versus Cease, like, this is a crazy easy matchup for the Cubs.
Yeah.
But the Cubs offense is miserable right now, and Cease is beginning out of damage left and right. He did get stung in his last start, but he's looked good versus the Cubs previously. Allowed 2 runs on 4 hits and 6 innings pitched the last time he faced them, and this is a guy that's really been able to zigzag out of trouble all season long. He has a home ERA of 1.77. A opponent batting average of 197, and we can't trust the Cubs offense. Yeah. So therefore, I think this game goes under 8.5. I'd love to back Darvish, but I just can't in this spot. I can't do it.
No, and look, I'm in agreement with you there. If this was a Cubs line, they at least showed something, maybe a five. Like I believe I was looking at the numbers there, like only scored more than 5 runs in like the last maybe 10 games or so, which is very un-Cubs like, considering that they do play some of their home games obviously at Wrigley Field. It's a hard one, but that's what I like to call my dilemma of the day. I look at this like, boy, I want to get on the Cubs. It's going to be fly balls. It's nice weather, and then I'm like, man, am I going to get a solo home run out of Rizzo in the first inning and nothing the rest of the game? And Javi Baez used to be a dominant hitter. Now he's down that 7 or 8 hole, with his ISO at 102 or 105, whatever it is, just terrible type stuff. Yeah. We'll see if he bounces back. Last game we'll take a look at today, a game in California, 9:25, 9:26. That's the Angels and the Dodgers. Heaney and Kershaw, 2 lefties on the mound. Kershaw, a heavy favorite, but coming down a little bit. Opened up at Pinnacle Offshore at 225, but now we're seeing it in the low 200s, minus 204, minus 202. Opened up at 8.5. That has also dropped down low as well. The Dodgers, I mean, you could, if there's any knock, it's they don't rake left-handed pitching here, but you're not getting a fantastic lefty on the mound. I think Kershaw's going to round into playoff form tonight. So if I'm looking at this game overall, I think Kershaw wants to be sharp. I think he wants to go 5 to 6 innings. Or if I'm a Dodgers, manager, look, I don't need you going 8 innings, 115 pitches, even if you're pitching a gem out here. Give me 5 strong innings. Give me the run line for the Dodgers over the first 5 innings. I think they can scratch out some runs from Heaney. That's the way I would go here. What are you looking at, Jason?
So Heaney's allowed 3 earned runs in his last 3 starts. In each start, 3-3-3.
Yep.
2 were against Texas. 2 were against the Rangers.
So they could times that by 2 then. Yeah, times it by 2.
Yeah, exactly. And Donnie just talked about number 1 how the Rangers offense has been terrible, but number 2 how facing a lefty isn't really the Dodgers' specialty. Well, it's not the Rangers' specialty either. And they were able to score, 3 runs in each start against Heaney. So, yeah, I do think the Dodgers are able to score plenty of runs versus Heaney, who does have a 3.19 FIP. So it's not like he's been bad throughout the season. Hasn't allowed too many walks, not allowed many home runs. Does struggle with guys that are on base, though. And for that reason, I think Dodgers get the job done. I think this game goes over 8, but I do like the Dodgers minus 1.5 if I had a lean. But I'm not taking minus 200 in a game where Kershaw's not really needed beyond like 5-6 innings.
You're right, and I think that's the way to go here. We're not talking about a game where maybe it's Tuesday and you say, hey, we're going to give you some extra days off. You're talking about a Friday start, so you're going to be on your 5th day by the time the playoffs kick in. You don't want 115 pitches on your record here trying to get to your next start. I think he has a clean, crisp 5 to 6 innings. Don't even worry about the score, even though I do think he's going to have a pretty good outing. So I'm going to take that run line over the first 5 innings. That covers the board today, but we do have some, mix and matches here in double headers. I stay away from those, Jason. Any looks that you have maybe in some of these double headers today you could tell the chat box about?
So, the first game of the Cardinals versus Brewers, you have Flaherty versus Brendan Sutter, or Sutter, however you pronounce it. I like Flaherty in this spot. I think the Cardinals definitely have the edge here. But, let's be real, though. Flaherty allowed 9 runs on 8 hits and 3 innings pitched versus the Brewers in his last start against the Brewers. I think he'll bounce back. I think he'll be fine. The Brewers' offense is nothing special. And then that second game, you have Lindblom versus Ponce de Leon. I'm not high on either of these pitchers. I like the over in that game. I'm not really sure what the number is, but no matter what the number is, this game should go over. They're both guys that will get hit pretty hard. When you look at the Rockies and Diamondbacks game, Zach Gallen versus Antonio Senzatella in that first game, Zach Gallen definitely the better pitcher in this game, but Senzatella, he's actually looked pretty good on the road this season. Or no, he's pitched worse on the road this season, away from Coors. Therefore, I like Gallen a ton in this game. It's funny how Senzatella's looked worse on the road than at home. And in the second game, you have Taylor Clark versus Antonio Santos of the Rockies. Santos hasn't started a single game for the Rockies this season, just 2 games played. So therefore, I'd go look at Diamondbacks here with Taylor Clark on the mound. I do think the Diamondbacks hit over on their team total in that second game. And then we have the Giants and Padres as the other doubleheader. I'm not sure if they announced the Giants pitchers just yet. The last time I checked, they didn't. But
looks like Tyler Anderson's going to start game 1. Just came out for the Giants.
Okay, yeah. So look, the Padres are pitching Denilson Lamet and Chris Paddock. They'll be their final starts before the playoffs. Definitely could be good to get them tuned up and ready to go. So with that said, I think the Padres have the edge in both these games, but let's not go away from that Giants offense and what they've been able to do at home for most of the season. with that said, yeah, I think the Padres will definitely win both games with their pitchers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants are able to steal one.
No disagreements there. Look at that. We got, 40 minutes? We soon an extra little Friday show, the extended happy hour show, we should actually call it. But a lot of good stuff going over in Major League Baseball. We're going to do it again on Monday. Playoffs start up. I don't know if the shows will be as long, but I do know Jason and I are certainly targeting next Wednesday, where we have 8 playoff baseball games to go over and have some fun with. And this is the elimination style. I can't wait for Major League Baseball to start the playoffs next week. We have a big weekend here, Saturday, college football, Sunday, the NFL. But now it's time for some best bets and bankers. Looking across the board, I usually go with one game. Try to maybe split that up a little bit. Maybe go with 2 games here today. There's 2 that I'm looking at. I'm going to jump right back in with Kansas City for my first game. I'm going to go with the team total over 4.5 versus the Detroit Tigers. And then I'm sort of in that little mix between the Philadelphia-Tampa Bay game, which the Phillies team total over 3.5 looks like a decent shot. But I'm going to stay with what I had on the show here. I think you're going to get some offense in Minnesota with good hitting conditions. And as I said before, I don't know if Nelson Cruz is going to be in the lineup. Probably not going to be in the lineup today is what I lean towards, but I still look at that number as a team total of 4, and I would be shocked if they were held to 2 runs. If Maley goes, 7 innings, really shuts them down, that bullpen closes them out. At home, nice weather, still need this to win the division. I'm going to go with them as a team total of over 4. So we'll go with the Kansas City Royals team total 4.5, and then also double down with the Minnesota Twins team total over 4. Jason, best bets and bankers, take it away. What are we looking at today?
So yeah, I mean, first off, I'm on the Royals too. Royals minus 0.5 in the first 5 at minus 106. Like we said, Brad Keller really done a great job at home all season long. Turnbull, not so great on the road. We're also talking about this Royals lineup, starting to figure it out offensively, starting to get healthy. They look good. And then behind Keller at home against Turnbull, I love this matchup, and I think the Royals can definitely score some runs early and help you with that team total as well. So Royals minus 0.5 in the first 5 at minus 106. It's an official play for me. Another official play for me, I like the Athletics minus 0.5 in the first 5 innings as well at minus 125. Chris Bassett, a home ERA of 0.89 on the season, just limited the Giants to 6.2 innings pitched to no runs off of just 3 hits and 7 strikeouts. Has now 15 strikeouts in his last 2 starts and has gone 6 innings or more in his last 3. Kikuchi has a high Sierra. He's allowed 9 earned runs in his last 10 innings pitched, 7.36 ERA on the road. I think the Athletics got to him offensively there. So another official play there. Athletics minus 0.5 in the first 5 innings. Lastly, the banker of the day, I bought up to over 9.5 for the Red Sox and Braves. So this game's at 10.5 right now. I bought it up to 9.5 and it was at 10. If you can get it at 10 instead of 9.5, just get it at 10, that's fine. You'll get the push there. But I wouldn't highly recommend 10.5. I think it could hit as well, but of course, I'd rather you get the 10 or the 9.5. And I paid up to minus 137 for that. So over 9.5, minus 137. Chris Mazda versus Cal Wright on the mound. Both these pitchers have not done well all season long. You're looking at potential bullpen guys going from the 5th inning on with both teams. And you'd assume some runs will be scored before they leave that game as well. So over 9.5 at minus 137. Official play, a banker for me. And those are my 3 plays for the day.
Fantastic, man. I like where we're going. I like how the way this card sets up. And also the Reds lineup just came out. They are full go. Akiyama, Castellanos, Votto, Suarez, Moustakas, Winker, Senzel, Galvis, and Barnhart. So hopefully from the Twins side, they counter it as well. So maybe even to look at that over the total for the game. But I like the Twins in that one. But it's nice because as Jason and I will always tell you, you need another team to chase them down. If one team gets up 3-0, you want that other team to be able to get after them and go 3-3. Same thing that happened last night in Kansas City. Get out quick. The other team comes back. You have a nice 8-7 game as they try to chase each other down. This should be a really good weekend and a fun weekend, guys. Thanks for spending another week with us right here on sportsbookreview.com on the Major League Baseball show. Jason, I love doing the show. We'll continue it hopefully right through the World Series in some form or fashion. But next week, at least we know we have a lot of playoff games, and you have 8 teams from each league in there. It's really nice. Those expanded games gives us a lot more baseball to talk about in the month of October coming up. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Over 266 people watching live, 52 thumbs up in here. Let's see if we could take down some winners, and off we go into the weekend. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Jason Radowitz. We're sportsbookreview.com, and this was your Friday Major League Baseball show. Good luck.